Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. My name is Tim Hannon, and with me, as always, is Steve Wirt. Steve, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
This episode, we're going to look back at the greatest seasons of each of Pittsburgh's pro sports franchises where the team did not win a championship. And those three teams are the 1976 Steelers, the 1993 Penguins, and the 1927 Pittsburgh Pirates.
Interesting.
So I think one thing we'll see as we go through these three teams is there's a lot of similarities between these three teams, but they all meet their demise in very different fashions. So let's start with the 76 Steelers and talk about that team. That's one I think that probably a lot of diehard Steeler fans are familiar with or harken back to because it was such a good team. And we'll talk about what happened. So coming into the 1976 season, the Steelers are two-time defending Super Bowl champions. And those two championships were largely because of their defense. This is before Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swann and John Stallworth had really developed that aerial attack that propelled the Steelers later in the decade. Steve, I always feel like that Super Steelers dynasty, I feel like it's like split into two halves in terms of like their style.
It kind of is like even like chronologically because they win two and then do they go 1 or 2 years without going
Two
back to
years.
two
And then,
years and
yeah,
then go back to the Super? So it really is almost like two different styles at least. They still had a good defense in the last two, but
they still had a good defense, but I guess maybe two different offensive styles because the first two
yeah,
was definitely more of
run the
a
ball.
run
Yeah,
the ball, and then ironically they changed the roles in those 2 years that they didn't win. They changed the roles to favor passing because of Mel Blount, and
yeah.
then and then they developed a really good aerial attack, and that's kind of what propelled them to their last two Super Bowls. But here in 1976, they're looking to become the first NFL team ever to three-peat.
You mean Super Bowl era or ever for the three-peat?
Super Bowl era.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I'm pretty sure the Packers three-peated, maybe
Yeah,
the
that,
Browns.
that doesn't count.
Yeah. Screw you, Vince Lombardi.
um, Only the Super Bowl era counts because the Steelers have the most Super Bowls. That's the only
So,
thing that matters.
okay. So it
Yeah.
didn't matter if you got a seal here and a seal there and run the ball in the alley. No, it's not.
I don't. I mean, to be a little more objective, I think there is something to be said about, if somebody won a bunch of championships in 1929 or whatever, when half the teams in the league were folding mid-season, it's not as impressive as the Super Bowl era. The Super Bowl era is really the modern era of football. But anyway, we will save that debate for another day. That 76 season starts off rocky. The defense is not good. Week one, they blow a 14-point lead in Oakland. Week three, the defense blows an 11-point lead against New England. And then the defense is in the middle of blowing another lead in week five against Cleveland when disaster strikes. So the Browns have a defensive lineman. His name is Turkey Jones.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, you know what this is going to be.
I know this is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, he catches Bradshaw for a sack, but instead of just bringing him down to the ground, Turkey Jones literally picks up Bradshaw and dumps him directly on his head, like like neck first. It's an incredibly violent and shocking play, even for that era of football. Bradshaw can't feel his legs. And Steve, here's a good like how times have changed story. So the way they handle this is they get Bradshaw off the field on a stretcher, and then they just stick him in a hallway outside the locker room on a gurney until the game is over. Like no X-rays, no rushing him to the hospital. Just you wait here in the hallway. We got to finish the game. Then they fly him back to Pittsburgh with the rest of the team, and then at that point they take him to a hospital.
He'll be all right. It's fine. Hospitals in Cleveland suck.
Bradshaw says he has no feeling in his legs for almost 3 days. He thought his career was over. He wasn't sure he'd ever even be able to walk again. For his part, Jones does say that he's sorry that it happened. He says, "quote I hope Terry Bradshaw's okay. a quality player like him get hurt. We're all in this game trying to make a living. It really does look horrific. Jones does get penalized on the play, but back then there was, no such thing as fines or suspensions or any of that stuff. So it's that's kind of the
So
end.
he was definitely roughing the passer. He earned that
Yes,
penalty.
it was a penalty, but that was about it. And
Yeah.
today that I feel like that would be very, very different.
There'd be a suspension. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And to be fair, even some of the Steelers players are quoted after the game saying they thought it was an accident. I think one of
How
the
do you like
Steelers.
flip somebody over? Okay.
Well, the what one I think was Jerry Mullins, the offensive lineman for the Steelers, said something to the effect of, Bradshaw was a guy that could scramble, and if you didn't, if you tried to like arm tackle him, he would get out of that and he'd run for 10 yards. So Jones was trying to make sure he wrapped him up and didn't mean to, dump him on his head. We'll post a link to it on our site. You can decide. I mean, it's one of those things. I knew the name Turkey Jones from when I was a young child because my mother talks
Yeah.
about that place. 50 years later, she still talks
She's
about that place.
traumatized by it.
Oh, I mean, if you ask my mom about Turkey Jones, it's just like hushed reverence. Like she remembers where she was when she was watching it, thought
I
Terry
wouldn't say
Bradshaw was
hush
dead.
reverence as much as abject horror.
Yeah, abject horror is probably a better
Yeah.
description. Yes, you're right. I mean, and that's how a lot of people in Pittsburgh felt like, oh my God, like he almost killed Terry Bradshaw. So the Steelers lose that game in Cleveland, and at this point in the season, they're 1-4. And remember, this is a 14 game season, so 1-4 is almost halfway through the season. And at this time, only four teams in each conference qualified for the playoffs. You had the three division winners and a wild card, and that's it.
I don't think they had as many teams, did they?
In 1976, they had 28 teams.
Oh, well, not that far off.
Right, not that far off. So yeah, you only
Back when the regular season meant something, Tim.
you had 14 teams in each conference. Only four of those 14 teams qualified. So 1-4 at that point is not good. They're also down because Bradshaw got hurt. They're down to their backup quarterback, who was supposed to be Joe Gilliam, but Joe Gilliam had been waived several weeks earlier because he had a bad drug addiction. It was causing him to miss practices and team meetings, and the Steelers just had enough. So now they're down to their third string quarterback. It's a rookie named Mike Kruschek. So at this point, they're done, right? 1-4, third string rookie quarterback.
They didn't even have Terry Hanratty still. Wow,
No,
whatever.
no.
That sucks.
Yeah. So they're dead in the water, is what you're thinking at this point. The next week they're hosting the division leading Cincinnati Bengals. And there's a turning point for the defense. And we're going to let Jack Lambert talk about what happens in that game.
We're down to one quarterback, and Cincinnati knew it. At least Bo Harris knew it, I guess. And Mike was scrambling. He ran out of bounds, and Harris gave him a shot. It wasn't a real vicious shot, but it was a pretty good shot. So I went down the line and gave him one back.
I like the dramatic music.
Yeah. So Jack Lambert, he says that was kind of a turning point. At that point, it's like they were tired of getting pushed around. The defense was really not good. Like we said, they were blowing leads, and it was just kind of enough is enough. It was very similar to what had happened in the Super Bowl the year before with Cliff Harris harassing Roy Durella, and Lambert threw him down to the ground. So he says that's a turning point, and what happens is the Steelers beat the Bengals 23-6.
What a shocker. The Steelers beating the Bengals. That's like, you could say that a lot over the last couple decades.
You could. And then they proceed to go on just a run for the ages. And I'm going to read, this is the last 8 games of the season. And I'm just going to read these scores. And I have to read this out loud because even reading it out loud, I can't believe it actually happened. So they New York Giants 27-0. San Diego 23-0. Kansas City 45-0. Miami 14-3. Houston 32-16. Houston somehow scores some points. Cincinnati 7-3.
So they've given up 19 points in 5 games?
It gets better. Cincinnati 7-3. Tampa Bay 42-0. Houston Oilers 21-0.
21 points in how many games?
So yeah, if you're keeping track, that's 9 straight wins, 8 of which the defense does not allow a touchdown in, 5 of which are shutouts. So you'll never see that again, right? You'll never see something like that ever again in the
The
NFL.
Ravens, I think the Ravens had like that in 2000, right? They had something like that, pretty close.
5 shutouts, 8 games where they
maybe
didn't
not
allow a
5,
touchdown. Yeah, I even 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens, whatever great defense comes next, I just don't think you'll ever see that again. It's just unheard of. And I know the rules are different now and it probably just couldn't happen because of that. But even in 1976, that's unbelievable that they went, 8 games where they didn't allow a touchdown. They just allowed field goals. And that one game, the Oilers got a couple of touchdowns. That was it. One game out of 9 where somebody scored a touchdown. That's unbelievable. Lambert's named the Defensive Player of the Year. 8 Steelers defensive players make the 1976 Pro Bowl team, including the entire secondary. So imagine that, the Pro Bowl, they're playing the Pro Bowl, and 8 of the 11 guys in the huddle are Steelers.
That's crazy. I wonder who the 3 other guys were.
Well, the 8 Steelers were J.T. Thomas, L.C. Greenwood, Joe Green, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Glenn Edwards, Mike Wagner, and Mel Blount. So you could process of elimination. It would have been let's see, 2 defensive linemen and a linebacker, I guess, would have been the other 3 guys in the AFC. On offense, Khrushchev wins all 6 of his starts, and he really isn't asked to do that much. He has 0 touchdown passes in those 6 starts, and only attempts 85 passes total. But he does complete 60% of them and has a good passer rating. So he's not asked to do much, but when he is doing something, he's not messing it up. At least the real strength of the offense is the running game. Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier both rushed for 1,000 yards. And remember, like we said, this is a 14-game schedule. So to have 2 running backs gain 1,000 yards in a 14-game schedule, they're running the ball a lot and they're running the ball effectively. Terry Bradshaw's back and he's healthy for the playoffs. So the Steelers do qualify for the playoffs. They have to go on the road because they had that bad start. But they're the hottest team in football, and a lot of people think for sure they're headed back to the Super Bowl. The first playoff game is at Baltimore against not the Ravens. This is back when the Colts played in Baltimore.
Yeah. Is that? Who's their quarterback? Brent? No.
Burt Jones.
Burt Jones. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And Burt Jones in 1976, Steve,
is the
NFL's most valuable player.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
So he's really good.
Not today, though.
Not today. He's no match for the Steelers defense. The Steelers win 40-14. They just blow out the Colts. And that sets up a 3rd consecutive AFC Championship game against the Oakland Raiders. And Oakland had only lost 1 game that season, so there's going to be a tough out. Oakland was a 1-loss team. But again, the Steelers are just on fire. They're steamrolling everybody. Their defense is so good. Unfortunately, in that Baltimore game, the Steelers lose both Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier to injury. So they go to Oakland with Reggie Harrison as their starting running back. And Chuck Noll basically has to install a new single back 3 wide receiver offense the week of the game because they didn't have 2 running backs anymore. And the 1 running back they did have was Reggie Harrison. The offense is unable to do anything. The Raiders become the first team in 3 months to figure out the Steelers defense. Kenny Stabler throws 2 touchdown passes and the Raiders win 24-7. And that ends the dream 1976 season.
Is that the game where Jack Lambert says after the game, just give me another 6-pack and we'll play him again? Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great quote. Yeah.
Yeah, the Steelers are very upset about losing that game. And I think the common sort of perception here in Pittsburgh, Steve, from many of the Steelers fans and the players on that team have said it too, had Franco and Rocky been healthy for that game, the Steelers win, right? I mean, I think that's what everybody believes. Would you agree with that?
I would think so. Yeah, I've heard that given as a reason they've lost that game.
So I just want to dissect that theory a little bit. I think so. If you're arguing for that theory, okay, it's a huge disadvantage when you can't run the offense that you've been running all year, right? We said they basically had to install a new offense, and you don't have your bread and butter running backs. And I think you even saw that bite the Steelers in the 2010s when Le'Veon Bell kept getting injured for the playoffs, right? It just wasn't the same without your dynamic running back. Also, you could argue that the defense had to be on the field a ton. If the offense was not able to do anything, they were going 3 and out maybe, and maybe the defense just had to be on the field a lot and couldn't hold back the Raiders. I think the arguments against that theory would be that, okay, the offense for sure was hampered. They didn't directly hurt the team either. If you watch that game, and I went back and watched highlights of it, Reggie Harrison was really bad early. He's like falling down in the backfield. And Bradshaw, I think, throws a bad interception in the first quarter, but the Raiders don't really get any points off of it. It's not akin to like the playoff game in Denver when Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams were hurt, and then like the third string running back fumbled the game away. Right? There wasn't any big mistakes from the offense, and I think the defense collapsed. I mean, they didn't allow a touchdown for 8 games, but they allowed 3 touchdowns in this game. I feel like if Oakland wins that game 10-7 instead of 24-7, I think the Franco Harris Rocky Bleier argument holds more water to me. But that's just my take on that.
Well, I think I agree. I think, if they stay on the field a little bit more, maybe, the Raiders score a few less points. The offense kind of helps the defense a little bit. And the defense might have been tired out. They had to play a lot that season. I think you had brought that up. So maybe they were kind of gassed.
It's fair. I just don't. The idea that like they would have for sure won with Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier. I mean, the other thing that's worth mentioning it
would have been a closer game, I think.
I'm sure it would have, I guess. But again, they gave up all those points to Kenny Stabler. I mean, if he's still scoring 24 points, again, the whole season was based on this defense that wouldn't allow any points whatsoever, and they allowed 24 points in that game. I think that's really what it comes down to.
I'd be curious to see who the quarterbacks of some of those teams, though. I bet they weren't all that great.
Yeah, and again, Stabler, just maybe the coaches or whatever, they just figured it out. I think it's also worth mentioning that the 75 title game the year before, Oakland had held Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier to a combined 95 yards total, and that was at Three River Stadium. So it wasn't like Oakland, couldn't play against those two guys anyway. So I think it's a decent excuse. I don't know that it's quite the excuse that people have made it out to be over the years. Anyway, let's talk about the aftermath of that season. The Raiders go on to defeat Minnesota in Super Bowl 11. Mike Krzyzewski never again starts a game for the Steelers. He's out of football by 1980. He does later become the head coach at the University of Central Florida. To this day, no NFL team has ever won 3 consecutive Super Bowls. And in terms of like the legacy of this team, I think it's well documented. I think a lot of people feel like this was the best Steeler team ever, better than any of the 6 Super Bowl winners. And that's not just fans. Jack Ham has said that. Dan Rooney said that. Jack Lambert. So there's guys, very closely associated with the Steelers that honestly believe that this was the best Steelers team ever. And they just didn't go all the way.
It happens. I mean, it's a long season. I know it's only 14 games, and anything can happen in a 1-game playoff. It's not like baseball where there's 7 games to decide a series. So,
yeah, and right, and Oakland again. It wasn't like they got upset. Oakland was a really good team. They were playing at Oakland, so that was going to be tough to beat them. But I bet if they win that game, then they probably trounce Minnesota in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, was that the no, I don't know who was the quarterback. Was it Tarkington?
Yeah, it was Tarkington. But they always went to the Super Bowl and lost, and they did it again that year. So let's talk about our next team on the list. It's the 1993 Pittsburgh Penguins, and there's a lot of similarities between the 93 Penguins and the 76 Steelers. The Penguins, just like the Steelers, are coming off back-to-back titles and looking to three-peat. They had won the 1992 Stanley Cup by winning their final 11 games of the playoffs. If you remember that, that's how they won the Cup in 92. They won their last 11 games.
Yeah, that was crazy run, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were a juggernaut. So they start the 93 season on a similar tear. They only lose once in their first 14 games of the season, and they basically just outscore everyone. That year, there are 30 players in the entire league who have 90 points, and 5 of those guys play for the Penguins. Mario Lemieux, Kevin Stevens, Rick Tocchet, Ron Francis, and Jaromir Jagr. They're on their way to another dominant season, but then in January, something pretty shocking happens. Lemieux announces he has cancer and will be out of the lineup indefinitely while undergoing radiation treatment. And I remember when that was announced. I remember watching that on Sports Center before I went to school and like not wanting to go to school because it was just so depressing. It was like I don't know, Steve. Do you remember that? How shocking that was? Mario Lemieux is going to be out for indefinitely because he has cancer.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, him getting cancer, and it was crazy. It was like you wouldn't expect like a person in their prime, and especially like an athlete to get something, but I guess it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
absolutely
it was shocking. It was shocking.
Absolutely. And really at that point, no one knows if Mary is going to play that season or ever again, really. And what's going to become of this, what was a very promising season up to that point. And Mario ends up being out for 2 months, and the Penguins fare okay while he's gone. They go like about 500, which, keeps them in contention, but obviously won't get them much farther. On March 2nd, Mario gets his final radiation treatment and then gets on a plane to Philadelphia and plays that night. And he not only plays, but he has a goal and an assist. And Rod Brindamore, the longtime Flyer, he said, quote, "It was like, really? You've been out this long and you're still that good? I just remember going, you've got to be kidding." And the fans at the Spectrum in Philly give Mario a standing ovation, which is probably even more improbable than the 76 Steelers posting 5 shutouts, because Philadelphia really hates Pittsburgh. I mean, they hate everybody. They hate Santa Claus, but they really hate the Penguins. And after that, 2 really remarkable things happen. One is Mario Lemieux, when he came back, he trails Buffalo Sabres forward Pat LaFontaine by 12 points for the NHL scoring lead because, he had missed 2 months. So even the fact that he's only 12 points behind after missing 2 months is pretty amazing. And then he finishes the season with 30 goals and 26 assists in 20 games to pass LaFontaine and capture the Art Ross Trophy by 12 points. So he ends up beating LaFontaine by 12 points after he missed 2 months due to cancer treatments. That's again, you can't even describe how amazing that is. He still to this day holds the record for most missed games ever by an Art Ross winner, and he's got the 3rd highest points per game average in the history of the league that season. So Mario individually is doing something amazing. The other remarkable thing that happens is the Pens, like the 76 Steelers, go on a run for the ages. They win 17 games in a row. To this day, that is still an NHL record.
Is that? I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, I remember the game they lost it actually, but and they barely lost it in overtime or something, didn't they? Or
yeah. Or I think I want to say they lost it with a tie, but they had already broken the record, so it was kind of like, okay, I had to end at some point. But the game where they can set the record is at Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. And in that game, Lemieux has 5 goals. And once again, the New York fans, also not known for being the most, cordial people in the world, they can't help but to stand up and clap. So the Penguins finished the regular season with 119 points. They captured the President's Trophy as the best regular season in the league, or best regular season record, I should say, in the league. Lemieux is the best player on the planet. It's like not even close. And what a story, right? Like, this is one that they're going to make a movie out of someday. This team, Mario has cancer. He comes back and he leads the Penguins to a 3rd Stanley Cup. That's what you're thinking is going to happen. The first round opponent in the playoffs is the New Jersey Devils, and it does not go well for the Devils. They get ousted in 5 games, although as you'll hear in this clip from announcer Gary Thorne, it may have been over even sooner than that.
Last quarter of the season, Devils could do nothing with it. They dropped from the 6th best to 12th. Lemieux, short-handed. Oh, my God, he scored! Unbelievable short-handed goal by Mario Lemieux. That may be the end of the series right there.
That was game 2.
Yeah, that was game 2. I mean,
was that John Van Beesbrook? Who was the goalie? I didn't even see.
Oh, New Jersey back then? Good question. Chris Terreri, maybe. I'd have to look that up. But
I think it was, somebody that wasn't going to stop Mario Lemieux on a breakaway.
Right. I think if you never watched Mario play during that era, I think it's kind of hard to put into words just how really dominant he was. But I think listening to that clip might give you a taste of it. Just the like, oh my God, he scored. Like, this is just, you can't. He's that good. You can't stop him. This is pointless. Why are we even playing this game? Right? I mean, that was the reaction there.
Yeah.
So, and that's how good the Penguins were at that point. And there's no doubt they're just going to steamroll their way through the playoffs to another Stanley Cup. Well, the second round opponent is the New York Islanders.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yes. The Penguins going into that series already have some bad history against New York. The Islanders had come back from a 3-0 deficit to beat them in 1975. And then there was another disastrous playoff loss against them in 1982. And the Islanders actually had played the Penguins tough that season. They'd beaten the Penguins 3 out of the 7 times they played them, which, for the best team in the league, winning 3 out of 7 against them isn't bad. But still, I mean, this Penguins team is so good. No one can stop them. Also, the Islanders, the best player on the Islanders that year is a guy named Pierre Turgeon. He had scored 58 goals. So Pierre Turgeon, very good player, but he was out for the series.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, I remember.
Do you remember why?
Yes, that's because Dale Hunter cheap shot him after the series. Was that the series winning goal?
Yeah, that was yes. Yeah. Dale Hunter was a goon for the Washington Capitals. He cheap shots Pierre Turgeon. He knocks him out of the playoffs.
Like he's literally like, "Yay, I scored a goal!" And he like cross checks him into the boards.
Yeah. I think I don't remember what happened to Dale Hunter, but I think at the time
he got suspended the next season for like 30 games.
It was. I remember it being like the longest suspension in NHL history. So that was back when they actually cared about protecting the star players a little bit.
No, it was just that
That's true.
Yeah, it wasn't. There was no excuse. Oh, it's part of hockey. This is a hockey play. No, the game was over, and he just literally went over and beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Steve. Because there wasn't so much of that. It was just that egregious. So you're playing the Islanders, who are a mediocre team, and they don't have the 58 goal scorer. This figures to be another short series, but right off the bat, the Islanders win game 1 at Pittsburgh. And they shut down all of the Penguins' goal scorers. In fact, here's a great, like, who wants to be a millionaire, $1 million question. Steve, can you guess who had the only 2 Pittsburgh goals in that game? It's 2 different players.
I don't know. I know. Which game is this? Game 1?
The first game.
I could name game 7. I know Alf Samuelson scored in game 7, I think.
Yeah, good guess. The answer is Mike Needham and Jeff Daniels. So none of the stars score in game 1. The Penguins do win the next 2 games, and Francis Yager and Mullen get some goals, but not Mario. And then the Islanders win game 4 to even the series. And a couple of things are happening at this point in the series. Number one, the Islanders have a defenseman, a guy named Darius Kasparaitis.
Kasparaitis, that's it, yeah.
And he is all over Mario.
Yeah.
And Lemieux really can't do anything. And the other Islanders defensemen are frustrating the other Penguin stars too. And then the second thing that's happening is the Islanders, their goaltender is a guy named Glenn Healy, who, again, mediocre goaltender, but in this series, he's really helping them steal games. So it's really not like a great Islanders team, but everything kind of comes together for them in this series with the goaltending and the defense, plus they're scoring goals. They end up scoring 23 goals in the final 4 games of the series. So, that's pretty impressive. And they say later that they really rallied around losing Turgeon, especially the way that they lost him, Steve. Like you said, it was just so unfair. And that gave them something to rally around. The Penguins take game 5, and now they have a chance to finish the series in Long Island in game 6. But that turns into a disaster. Kasparaitis, as we know from his time here in Pittsburgh later, he really had a knack for getting into people's heads. We did that episode about Joey Porter, about how Joey Porter was so good at just mentally getting in people's heads. Darius Kasparaitis was the hockey version of that, and boy, did he get into the Penguins' heads in this series. Penguins rack up 101 penalty minutes, and in this game, Game 6, Ron Francis gets a 5-minute major in a game misconduct, retaliating.
Ron Francis, of all people. Jeez.
Well, and it really hurt because New York ends up scoring twice on the ensuing power play. It's one of those 5-minute score as many as you can power plays. Yeah. And they score twice and they win the game 7-5. So now it all comes down to Game 7 in Pittsburgh. The Penguins are just not playing well at this point. We mentioned the 101 penalty minutes, but even when they were on the power play, they weren't good. They had allowed 4 shorthanded goals. 4. I mean, that's a ton of shorthanded goals in a series. Game 7 starts off terribly as well. Kevin Stevens collides with Richie Pylon, and it's one of the most, I don't know, Steve, how do you even describe it? Horrific.
Yeah, that's a good, like, he like has like having a seizure on the ice or something. It looked bad. It was bad. Did he break like all the bones in his face or something?
Yes. Well, what happens is he collides and then he like loses consciousness like as he's like in midair. And so when he lands on the ice, normally you would be putting your arms down, you'd brace yourself, but he's knocked out and he hits the ice face first. Stevens is rushed to the hospital. I guess at this point we progressed beyond leaving guys in the hallway outside the locker room.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Larry Murphy says that really shook the team, seeing that happen. And sure enough, the Islanders have a 3-1 lead with just 4 minutes left in the game. But this team is just too good to go down that easily. Francis scores, and then with 1 minute left in their season, Tocchet gets a goal on a deflection to force overtime. So it's like, okay, we had to overcome some adversity, but this is a team of destiny. I remember watching that game, Steve, and I thought there was zero doubt in my mind that the Penguins would get the overtime goal. They were just too good not to.
Yeah, you didn't count on Tom Barrasso, did you?
I did not. So at 5:16 of overtime, the Islanders get it 2-on-1. Ray Ferraro passes it to a little-known Czech player named David Volek.
Yeah.
He blasts a shot past Tom Barrasso, and that ends the series. And you want to talk about just shocking. I mean, the Civic Arena just goes completely silent. No one can believe this just happened. And I feel like it's a little different than 1976 because the Oakland Raiders were a 13-1 team who had been one of the best teams of that era. But this Islanders team, like we said, they weren't that good. In fact, they get pretty much boat raced in the conference finals against Montreal. Like that wasn't even close.
I don't know the Penguins would have that's always been a debate whether the Penguins would have beat Montreal. Montreal was the cup winner that year.
They were.
They had some guy in goal named Roy.
They had a very good goaltender, but I mean, losing to the Islanders, I think, was just beyond
I guess
anybody's.
you would have been more like, they lost to Montreal. They had Patrick Waugh, and he was really good. Yeah, that would have been a great series. And then if they would have made the final, the final would have been.
Yeah, the Kings and Gretzky.
It would have been Lemieux and Gretzky. Yeah,
and that's honestly I think that's what hurts.
Hockey, that would have been the marquee LeBron and Curry and Magic and Bird. And,
yes, and that was also the era where there was a big debate over who was better, Gretzky or Lemieux, and Mario beating him for the cup would have just cemented that argument, at least at that point. And it's just such a missed opportunity on so many different levels. So let's talk about the aftermath. Stevens has major facial reconstruction. There's an ear-to-ear incision made at his hairline, 100 stitches, metal plates to support the reassembled bones in his face. And when you have that kind of surgery, they give you pretty heavy painkillers. And Stevens, unfortunately, develops a pretty bad drug addiction. He actually spends time in prison, really ruins his life.
Yeah.
Mario Lemieux never makes it back to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's the end of the dynasty. So again, unlike the 76 Steelers, where it was a missed opportunity, but then they won 2 more Super Bowls, this Penguins team never goes back to the Stanley Cup Finals. 30 years later, it remains, I'd say, probably the biggest upset in the history of Pittsburgh sports. I don't even know what comes close, Steve. Can you even think of anything that comes close? Maybe the Chargers beating the Steelers in that championship game, but that Steelers team was nowhere near as good as
Yeah,
Like,
and they hadn't won. Like this team was a proven
right,
winner.
right,
It's like,
exactly.
but I mean, now nobody had three-peated and still hasn't since the 1983 Islanders. If I remember
Correct.
my hockey.
Good. Yes, you're accurate.
I only
Good
remember that
call.
because in 2017 I was really hoping the Penguins would three-peat, but it wasn't to be.
Craig Patrick, the general manager, says, "quote That was our best team. We had depth on defense. We had good goaltending. We had everything we needed. We had it right there." And I just think again, it hurt not just because of how good that team was, not just because they would have played against Gretzky, but I think what it would have meant for Maria's legacy, coming back from cancer, winning the scoring title, and then winning a third straight cup, just would have put him on a pretty lofty pinnacle. Now he's on a pretty lofty pinnacle as it is, but
Yeah.
but I just that one hurt. I just and having 76 Steelers I was too young for. That the 93 Penguins, I remember that season. I remember the excitement.
Yeah, that sucked.
It really did. It hurt. It just hurt. Like I don't know how else to describe it. It just hurt.
Yeah, it was a rough way to go. Al Arbor was the coach of the Islanders, if anybody remembers, and he was the guy who I think he was the architect of the other Islanders teams that had won all those cups. So
Yeah, and kudos to the Islanders. I mean, you can't take anything away from them because they did it, and I think that was kind of their Stanley Cup. I think that's
yeah,
probably why they didn't fare well in the next series because they were just so focused on beating the Pens. And Darius Kasparaitis, we ended up getting him a few years later because of that, and he ended up being a pretty good player for us. But yeah, that one just killed it. And I hate there's no team I feel like there's rivals who you hate, like you hate the Flyers, you hate the Ravens, whatever. The Islanders, it's like this feeling of just dread.
yeah, it's doom. It's
doom.
total doom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're done. They're never beat the Islanders in a game that matters. It's well, except for that one time, Brooks Orpik snuck one in overtime.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, even going back to a couple years ago, Tristan Jarry giving them the puck in double overtime.
Yeah.
Right. It's just always disaster. It's doom. Doom's a great word for it, Steve.
Yeah.
Like it's just dread. It's like, yeah. So anyway, that's the 93 Penguins. The third and final team on our list is the 1927 Pittsburgh Pirates. And similar to the two other teams on this list,
were you around for that one, Tim?
I was still a little too young for that one, Steve.
Oh, okay. Me too. By like 50 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So similar to those other two teams on the list, the 76 Steelers and the 93 Penguins, the 27 Pirates, they had recently won a championship. Unlike the other two teams, they weren't coming off back-to-back titles. So what happens is the Pirates win the World Series in 1925. We did a whole episode on that team. And then they have a really strong season in 1926 and are looking to win back-to-back. In fact, they're in first place in August. But then the season breaks down thanks to some off-the-field drama, which Steve also covered in that previous episode. And
that was Fred Clark decided to manage the team, even though they had a manager.
That's right. So what happened was Fred Clark. So if you don't know who Fred Clark was, he had played for and managed the Pirates for years. And he was very successful doing it. In fact, the Pirates won 4 pennants and a World Series under Fred Clark. But in 1926, the team is managed by a guy named Bill McKechnie. He's the manager who had won the World Series the previous season.
Of the McKechnie Field fame.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Fred Clark's still with the organization, but he's like in a front office role. Well, Fred Clark decides he wants to sit in the dugout in full uniform and give advice to the players, often which is like very critical advice. Not like, oh, attaboy, more like, what were you thinking on that play kind of advice. And naturally, there's some players who don't like it, right? They're like, who's this guy, right? He's not the manager. What's he doing down here? And Steve, I think the comparison you made was, you said it would be like if the Steelers would hire Bill Cowher, if Bill Cowher was in the front office and then the Steelers stuck him on the sidelines to question all of Mike Tomlin's play calls and yell at players for doing stuff wrong, right? That would be a little awkward, to say the least.
A little bit. It wouldn't work. You can't have two bosses. It doesn't really work out well.
So 3 of the veteran players stage a revolt, but that doesn't work out. And then all 3 players get released, one of whom is team captain and Hall of Famer Max Carey. So that's a bad set of circumstances to have like a failed team mutiny, and then your team captain gets cut because of said mutiny when you're in a pennant race. And the Pirates ultimately finished 4 games behind St. Louis in the National League standings. So they don't repeat in 1926. And then all that drama carries into the offseason. Clark is criticized for what happened. And after the season, he resigns from the Pirates and literally severs all ties from the organization. And then it impacts the manager too, because the ownership's not really happy with the way Bill McKechnie handles the whole thing. He gets fired literally like almost a calendar year after winning the World Series. So again, by way of comparison, Steve, imagine like the 1976 Steelers that we talked about. Imagine if like Joe Green gets waived because of an ugly players revolt, and then like Dan Rooney severs all ties with the organization and Chuck Noll gets fired. Like that was the equivalent of what happened here. I mean, it was crazy. So going into that 1927 season, no one's really sure what to expect from the Pirates. They do have a new manager since they had fired McKechnie. It's a guy named Donnie Bush, which I feel like is a great Pittsburgh name.
Donnie Bush is going to get them Pirates playing right.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys know who the new manager is, Donnie Bush. So they also have a decent amount of roster turnover from that championship team of 25. So you still have some of the key players, Hall of Famer Pie Traynor still there, Hall of Famer Kiki Kyler is still there.
That's just a great name still.
Also a great name.
Yeah.
But there's some new guys who are becoming key players as well, specifically 2 brothers, Paul and
the
Wainer.
Wainers. What is it? What was it? Big Trouble, Little Trouble, or Big
Poison?
Big Poison, Little Poison. Yeah, that's it.
Big Poison, Little Poison. Great nicknames. So
yeah,
that's when we knew how to do nicknames.
Yeah, in the 20s.
Yeah.
Well, you got to sell papers, so you got to figure out with a snappy nickname. Yeah.
The Wainer brothers grew up on a farm in the Oklahoma Territory. That was before Oklahoma was a state.
Wow. Wow.
And their father was a good baseball player too. Their dad had actually been offered a contract by the White Sox, but he's like, nah, I'd rather be a farmer because,
Well, farmers are a reliable gig. Baseball, that's what'll happen.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So both boys get really good at baseball. Paul, going into that 27th season, Paul is in his second season. Lloyd is in his first, and Lloyd is replacing Max Carey, who, like we said, was the team captain and Hall of Famer. He's replacing him in center field. So that's a big task. And the season starts off kind of slow. The Pirates are 10-9 out of the gate, which is, obviously very mediocre. But then in May, their offense gets going. They go on an 11-game winning streak in which they score an average of 7.4 runs per game, that's a lot for baseball, 7 runs a game.
Averaging, yeah. I mean, that means there were a lot of games they scored over 7 runs.
Correct.
Yeah. For all you math majors out there, yeah.
It's kind of like the '93 Penguins, where they're just kind of overwhelming people with their scoring, and they're in a really tight pennant race all season with the Giants and Cardinals.
That will be the New York baseball Giants.
Correct. That was when the Giants played in New York.
Yeah.
And if you look at when the Pirates won the pennant in 1925, that year they were the only team to crack 90 wins. But in 1927, there are 3 teams who reached 90 wins. So the Pirates really have to be better than everybody else. Their pitching is pretty good. They have 3 19-game winners on that team. So they have decent pitching. But ultimately, they really just bat their way through the competition. So Paul Wainer, his season, he leads the National League in hits, triples, batting average, and RBIs. His 237 hits are almost 100 years later still a Pirates record. His 131 RBIs are still a Pirates record. He sets the major league record for consecutive games with an extra base hit with 14. So he had 14 games in a row where he has an extra base hit.
Either a double, triple, or home run.
Correct.
Wow.
Since Paul Wainer did that in 1927, the only other time someone's done that for 14 straight games, Chipper Jones in 2006.
Wow, I would have guessed Barry Bonds, but wow.
So that's how rare that was. Wainer's the National League MVP. A fun fact about Paul Wainer, he had an astigmatism, and it made the baseball look like grapefruit sized because of the astigmatism. And so you think that would be a problem. He'd want to wear like glasses or something to fix that. But he said because the ball looked bigger, he was able to hit it better.
does he realize the ball was the same size? And
Yeah,
it was his perception
a mental
that
thing.
was altered.
Yeah. Something about that. So I always just thought that was
You would
interesting.
think that would hinder your ability to hit the
Exactly.
ball.
You think he'd miss because you're swinging at something that's not there, but apparently it helped.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I say.
So Paul Wainer, just a season for the ages. Again, team records that still stand to this day. Not to be outdone, little brother Lloyd bats .355 with 223 hits. So Paul Wainer
for the season?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like if you did that now, you'd be like the batting champion by like 30 points, probably.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about Paul Wainer set the team record for hits with 237, his brother had 223. He wasn't that far behind. And Lloyd is the leadoff hitter for the National League. He leads the league in runs scored. And they said that infielders of that era traditionally played deep in their positions, but Wainer made them play closer to compensate for his speed as a runner. So Lloyd Wainer is also very fast. Pie Traynor, like we said, is still there. He hits 342, which is like nothing compared to the Wainer brothers, but 342 would be your best player, potentially today. The Pirates have 7 hitters over 300. The team as a whole batted .305.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an offensive powerhouse of a roster.
Oh, by the way, last year, McNeil for the Mets, .326.
Was that the batting champion?
The batting average, the best batting average.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 355, pretty good.
Jeff McNeil, he's a second baseman for the Mets.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good comparison. So just like the 76 Steelers with the Bradshaw injury, just like the 93 Penguins with Mario's cancer diagnosis, the 1927 Pirates experienced some heavy adversity also. Unfortunately, unlike those other two teams, this adversity is very much self-inflicted. So as we mentioned, Donnie Bush is the manager, and he has a feud with Pirate star Kiki Kyler. Kyler's unhappy about being switched from third to second in the batting order, and allegedly he doesn't play very hard for a few games to protest. And then there's a game against the Giants where he doesn't slide into second base on a double play ball to try to break up the double play. And Bush fines him $50, which I think was probably a lot in 1927.
$50. Well, what's that ranked for inflation? I don't know.
It's more than $50 today. I can tell you that. Donnie Bush basically benches Kiki Kyler for the last 2 months of the regular season.
What the heck? Wow.
And this does not go over well with the fans. Kyler was a World Series hero, and the fans are coming to Forbes Field literally chanting for Kyler to be put in the game. Bush tries to explain his decision in the media. He says, "Oh, there's nothing personal against Kyler. He's just not playing up to standards," and blah blah blah. But that's a little bit of horse manure because Kyler was
he felt his war was slipping.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
Donnie Bush was in the stats.
Kyler was hitting 309 at the time.
Well, he doesn't believe in batting average.
Right.
He's all about the OBS. And
well, the other thing is the guys that he's being replaced with are basically like minor league call-ups.
Oh,
so this sounds like he's saying it's not personal, but it sounds personal. And in fact, years later, Donnie Bush gives an interview where he finally admits that it was. He says what happened is that he used to always argue with Kiki Kyler about throwing too high for the cutoff man. And one day, Kyler's coming in to the bench, and Bush says to him, "Won't you ever learn to throw the ball?" And Kyler says, "You know what? If you don't like the way I play, then get somebody else." And Bush says, "Okay, I will." And that's literally what happens. He's like, "Okay, I will." And then to prove a point, he benches him for 2 months, the last 2 months of the season.
Instead of just like a game or two or a series, right. No. Literally, August and September.
Here's Donnie Bush years later, quote, "It had to be that way. I had to maintain discipline. The real reason I benched him was for what he said to me after the high throw. I had great respect for Kyler as a player. If he had apologized to me, I would have put him back in the lineup, but he never did." End quote. Geez. So that's some pretty impressive stubbornness, right?
2 months.
Yeah, that's holding a grudge. I think the other interesting thing, Steve, is that 100 years ago, fans took the side of the player, whereas I feel like that would be reversed today.
You think? I
Well,
don't know.
think about like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
When was the last time anyone ever sided with a diva player? Probably 1927
That
is the answer to that question.
1927, 90
I mean,
years.
seriously.
What
because
is it, 95 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, Kiki Kyler was diva's
I
a
don't know
strong
if he
word,
was a diva. I mean,
but he's intentionally
for that era, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's potentially like taking plays off to protest. He's basically being a smart mouth to his coach. Like, oh, you don't like it, go get somebody else, right? So,
Yeah.
That for that era, that's kind of diva-ish, and I feel like again, if that were today, bench him. We don't need that. They're bringing the team cancer and everything else. So, but at that point, the fans were mad at the manager, not at Kiki Kyler. So even without Kiki Kyler, the Pirates do battle their way past New York and St. Louis. They win the pennant. Their opponent in the World Series that year is the New York Yankees, who happen to be arguably the greatest baseball team of all time.
Yeah.
They have a lineup that was called Murderers Row. It consists of Earl Combs, Mark Koenig, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Bob Musial, and Tony Lazzeri. Those 6 players were the reason that 1927 Yankees team scores nearly 1,000 runs, and they outscore their opponents
in
by
156 games.
Yeah, they outscore their opponents by a record of 376 runs. Gehrig is the American League MVP. Babe Ruth hits 60 home runs. No one will ever top that.
Never.
So, and to this day, the 1927 Yankees still have the highest all-time single season winning percentage in American League history. Their winning percentage was .721. No one's ever topped that in the American League.
How many wins overall did they have? They were definitely over 90, or maybe probably over 100.
Probably. I don't have that in front of me, but the point being that they're an all-time great team. So it's going to be a tough fight. But I mean, hey, the Cardinals had beaten the Yankees in 7 games the year before in the World Series. And the Pirates, as we detailed, they have a pretty juggernaut.
The Yankees had 110 wins.
Okay, which is pretty good in a shorter
That's insane.
season.
Yeah, that's insane. They lost 44 games the whole year.
Yeah,
which the Pirates might only win 44 games this year. So, no.
So yeah, definitely going to be a tough series. But again, the Pirates were really good. We said all that stuff about Paul Wainer and everything else. It wasn't like the Pirates were an easy out either. So game 1 of the World Series is at Pittsburgh, and the Yankees score a bunch of runs early. The Pirates battle back. In the bottom of the 9th inning, the Yankees are clinging to a 5-4 lead, and the pitcher spot is due up. So Donnie Bush needs to send out a pinch hitter. Guess who's on the bench, Steve?
Kiki Kyler.
It's Hall of Fame World Series hero Kiki Kyler. But instead, Donnie Bush sends up a guy named Fred Brickle, a reserve outfielder who only had 21 at bats during the whole season, and he grounds out to the pitcher, and the Pirates lose.
That's insane.
Yeah, the fans cannot believe that Donnie Bush would basically sacrifice a chance to win the first game of the World Series because he's mad at Kiki Kyler. 1927 Twitter lights up with Fire Bush hashtags. Right?
The ticker on the little thing.
Well, I mean,
the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is saying, my gosh, the comments section in the Pittsburgh Post.
Right.
Really,
the comments section.
Maybe it was an editorial.
Letters to the editor.
Yeah, I guess.
Dear sir, I am highly offended by the actions of our manager. But seriously, I mean, they needed, it's 5-4. All they need is a run to tie the game, and you
put your best player out there, or like one of your best players.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, really impressive level of pettiness and stubbornness and grudge holding on the part of Donnie Bush.
Yeah.
The issue is so bad. So the owner of the team at that point is Barney Dreyfuss, who we've talked about before. And Barney Dreyfuss even has to issue a statement because there's so much furor about this. But it's kind of a weak statement, Steve. Here's what he says, quote, "It is solely an issue between Bush and Kyler. If Bush wants to play Kyler at any time, he is free to do so."
What the heck does that mean? He is free to do so. Like, it's his team. He's got to,
washing his hands of it. I mean, you're the owner, right? Like, but So I thought that was kind of weak. Barney Dreyfuss did a lot of great things, but I thought that statement was kind of weak.
Maybe he handled it behind closed doors, or maybe not.
Well, let's see
I
what
mean,
happens.
for a guy that let Fred Clark sit in the dugout, I don't know.
True.
You know?
Yeah. The issue does come up again in game 2 at Forbes Field. In the 8th inning of that game, the Yankees are winning big, but the Pirates are trying to stage a comeback. And again, the Pirates need a pinch hitter. And here's the New York Times recap of that game. I'm just going to read a quote from the New York Times, and I'm going to try to read it in 1927 journalistic.
Thanks.
Quote, okay. The fans rose by the thousands and set up a deafening clamor for Kiki Kyler. But Donnie Bush was obdurate and called on Earl Smith amid a storm of boos and jeers and catcalls. Instead, citizens jumped up and waved their fists in Bush's direction when Smith grounded weakly to Lou Gehrig. Another chorus of derisive jeers and laughter greeted the failure of Kyler's substitute. New York Times.
Wow, that sounded like something from what's his name?
Ken Burns.
Yeah, Ken
That's
Burns.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment. So,
Yeah.
so again, not going to play Kiki Kyler, going to put up some bum, and everybody's not happy. The Pirates dropped the first 2 games at home. The Yankees blow them out in game 3 in New York. And you would think, at this point, these murderers row guys would just be pounding out home runs and slugging the Pirates to death, but that's not really what's happening. In fact, the Yankees only hit 2 home runs in the entire series, both of them by Babe Ruth.
Who's that guy? He'll never remember anything.
Yeah, he was okay. There's a bunch of runs scored due to Pirates' mistakes. In that first game, 3 of the 5 runs that the Yankees scored are due to walks and errors. And then 2 runs in the second game are due to a wild pitch and a hit batsman. So, I mean, yes, the Yankees are very good, right? But the Pirates are kind of shooting themselves in the foot a lot. So now the Pirates have their backs to the wall in game 4. They play a good game. The Wainer brothers are hitting well. And the game is tied going into the bottom of the 9th inning. But the Yankees get the first 2 men on base. And guess who's up at the plate? It's Babe freaking Ruth with the series on the line. So you don't want to pitch to him. The Pirates intentionally walk him, which means now Pirates pitcher Johnny Milges has the bases loaded with nobody out, and Lou Gehrig is up at the plate.
Well, that was like, what do they call that?
Pick your poison.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, all Lou Gehrig has to do here is hit a fly ball to the outfield, and that's the end of the series. But Johnny Milges strikes out Lou Gehrig. Then he strikes out a second murderers row guy, Bob Musial. And now Tony Lazzeri is up, and the Pirates are about to get out of this huge jam to save their season when Johnny Milges throws a wild pitch. The runner from third scores, and that's how the season ends.
It's kind of anticlimactic.
I mean, you have Lou Gehrig up with the bases loaded, and you strike him out.
Yeah.
Then you have a second guy up with the bases loaded, and you strike him out.
Yeah.
And then you throw a wild pitch. Yeah, it
was
just
probably the most fitting way for the Pirates season to end. Quite honestly,
it's a bitter loss. I mean, okay, were they going to beat the 1927 Yankees? Maybe not. But getting swept and giving up runs with wild pitches and errors and walks, they were a better team than that. Barney Dreyfuss after the series says, quote, "No team that is good enough to win the championship of a major league should lose 4 straight games to the pennant winner of the rival league." And I think he has a point there.
Barney wasn't happy.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between losing to the 1927 Yankees and getting swept, right? So a team that good, a team that had that much, scoring 7 runs a game and, setting the record for hits and RBIs and everything else, you think they should have won at least 1 game. So the aftermath of this team, when the series ends, the Wainer brothers join Ruth and Gehrig on a 16-week vaudeville circuit, with Paul playing the saxophone and Lloyd playing the violin, because 1920s.
What? You're making that up, right?
I'm not making that up. That happened.
That happened?
That happened.
And what year is this? So this is Prohibition? So it's like...
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can only imagine what was going on in those speakeasies, huh? Wow. I heard Paul Wainer played a wonderful saxophone. Yeah.
After the season, the Pirates trade Kiki Kyler to the Cubs. So that's 2 years in a row where the Pirates dump a future Hall of Famer because of a feud with the team. Donnie Bush manages the Pirates to a fourth place finish in 1928 and then abruptly resigns in the middle of the 1929 season. At the time, the Sporting News notes that many of the Pittsburgh fans had turned against Bush when he benched Kyler in 1927, and then he'd never been able to get the local fans behind him. So, but that's probably true. I mean, if they were that mad at him in 1927, I doubt they forgave him with a fourth place finish and Kiki Kyler being traded in 1928. So, Donnie Bush remains in baseball for the rest of his life. In fact, when he dies at age 84, he's actually working as a scout for the White Sox.
Oh, wow.
So Donnie Bush really did love baseball. It just didn't love when Kiki Kyler,
Out-thought him that one time.
Gave him lip.
Yeah.
And I think like the 93 Penguins, this one hurts because, again, it's like the 93 Penguins, that team never makes it back to the World Series. And maybe it hurts even more only because they kind of did themselves in with a lot of internal dysfunction, right? Like what happens if they don't have Fred Clark in the dugout and Kiki Kyler and Donnie Bush feuding with each other, right? Do they win more than one championship? You could argue that they do.
Hopefully. I mean, that's kind of, you are right. There's three different ways. Like the Steelers were injuries. The Penguins were kind of injuries. Maybe they overlooked the Islanders. Then this was just totally self-inflicted collapse. I mean,
yeah. Well, in the Penguins, it was a big upset. The Pirates were playing the best team ever. So just very different ways that they all met their demise. Like I said at the beginning, but a lot of similarities too, and definitely three teams that you could argue that that any of those three teams were better than pick one of the other teams that actually won a championship. So, but like you said earlier, Steve, that's the way it goes in sports sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. It's unpredictable. That's why we watch. Yeah, it would have been nice if they would have given them more of a series and the Islanders and just have the Penguins number. Like the Penguins have the Capitals number. The Islanders have our number. And I don't know. I mean, I've heard great things about the 76 Steelers, but I didn't realize they started off the season so badly. Maybe if they start off the season a little better, they have a home game or I don't know. I get the feeling that team just got unlucky just with injuries. I really do. Or if Joe Gilliam doesn't go on drugs, maybe they win too. Like they have actually like a real quarterback.
That's a good point as well. I think that going through the adversity, you could also argue going through the adversity made them stronger. And again, that's why like I said, all three of those teams had a huge middle of the season thing they had to overcome. And it looked like they had, and then it didn't matter in the end. Yeah.
Maybe.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks, as always, for listening to our little podcast here. If you like the podcast, we'd encourage you to leave a review on whatever podcast service you listen to. You can connect with us, too, on the web, on Facebook, on Twitter. We also appreciate word of mouth. That's definitely how a lot of people find the show, is other people telling them about it or sharing it on their social media feed. So if you'd be so kind as to do that, we would also appreciate it. Thank you, and we will catch you next time.